This right here is the Harmony, widely accepted to be the best heavy attack melee in Warframe. But what if I told you that there's a tiny little giveaway weapon that can easily do the same thing? That's right, ladies and gentlemen frames, the next anniversary weapon is here in the form of the Dex Nikana. You can get it for free right now, and in this Warframe guide, we will take an in-depth look at it with updated 2026 builds and why exactly it is so ridiculously strong, and it got even better this year. Big shoutouts to all our generous channel members as always, and now, let's jump right into it. Now, first things first, I'm sure you're probably already tired of hearing it, let's talk about how you can get this weapon in case you don't know. Right now, there is a Warframe anniversary event going on with rotating weekly rewards. From now on, for 1 week, you will be able to get the Dex Nikana for free, and the way you do this is actually pretty simple. Walk over to your star chart, and then in the top right corner here, you will see an event mission pop up in the form of a very easy low-level mission, and all you gotta do is play the mission, and at the end then, you will get the Dex Nikana as a reward. One note on the side here, this video is pre-produced, so in the background you're not actually seeing the Dex Nikana, but if you log in right now, then this mission will display the Dex Nikana. But even if you already have it from one of the previous anniversary events, then still, I would highly recommend doing the mission anyway, because every one of the anniversary weapons comes with their own inventory slot, which means if you get a duplicate, you can just sell it off for a couple of credits and therefore get a free inventory slot for something else. Don't miss out on it. But now that you've got your greedy little tenno fingers on the Dex Nikana, let's also take a look at what the weapon can even do. The Dex Nikana, as I'm sure you might have guessed, is a Nikana weapon. Yes, really, Captain Obvious. However, what that means of course is, it comes with the Nikana typical stances, out of which the community favorite is usually Blind Justice. However, Decisive Judgment is also nothing to scoff at. In terms of how it handles, it plays like literally every other Nikana in the game, there's no special movesets or anything. However, I wouldn't be making this video if there wasn't anything special about it. And indeed, the Dex Nikana has a very interesting quirk. See, given the fact that it was introduced to the game 2 years ago for the 11th anniversary, the devs gave the Dex Nikana a little gimmick that reflects the number 11. To be more precise, in contrast to any other melee in the game, which goes up to a maximum of 12x combo multiplier, the Dex Nikana can only go up to a maximum of 11. However, that's actually a good thing, because where other melees need to get 20 hits in to increase the combo multiplier by 1, the Dex Nikana increases its combo multiplier in increments of only 11 hits. This, at first hands, sounds kinda gimmicky and unnecessary, but believe me, when we talk about the builds later on, you're gonna see how this feature is secretly ridiculously overpowered. Let's also though take a quick look at the stats, and what we have here is pretty nice, coming in with a 24% crit chance, 2.6 times crit damage multiplier, that's very high, and 18% status, which isn't crazy, but is also nothing to scoff at. The damage has a very high slash portion, which is nice if we want to go for a slash status build, and luckily that's possible even though the status chance isn't all too crazy, because in a lot of the Nikana stance mods, we get a decent chunk of force proc slashes anyway. But as always, if you could leave a quick like for the video, that would be really nice, because it always helps me big time with the YouTube algorithm and getting these guides out to more people. So thank you so much for your support. Now, before we get into the builds, there is one more important thing that I want to talk about. And that is that you might be wondering if it's even worth it to invest forma and resources into building the Dex Nikana in the first place. So, in order to give you a better overview of the situation, I'm now going to give you a quick comparison between the Dex Nikana and other popular Nikana type weapons. The first one of which would be the Skiayati, which you get for free by just playing through the story. And to make it very short, the Skiayati is definitely not a trash weapon or anything, but overall I kinda don't think that it's all too great of a Nikana. On the one hand, yes, it has high status chance and a big slash portion, but the crit performance really hurts the weapon, and then it also has the 2 forced Umbra polarities on it, which means you want to have sacrificial steel as well as sacrificial pressure on the weapon, and on a status heavy build like this, you would instead rather have condition overload and blood rush, which complicates the builds and just overall, right, the Skayati is nice for when you get it, but it doesn't belong into the best Nikana category out there. Another fan favorite though would be the Siam, the Nikana that you can get from playing Deviri, and this one is a handful. To be fair, I've talked about it more in other videos, but the main selling point of the Siam is that with a heavy attack it shoots out an energy wave, and that energy wave has multiplicative condition overload. Long story short, with this energy wave playstyle, you can deal absolutely ridiculous damage with the Siam, so if that's what you want to go for, then surely the Siam is the weapon for you. Also, if we compare the stats, then we have solid crit performance with ridiculously high status chance and almost double the base damage of the Dex Nikana. So by looking purely at the stats, we would say that the Siam is technically a better weapon. Technically. Next, let's also compare the Dex Nikana with its big brother, the Nikana Prime. And here, we basically have an upgrade across the board with higher crit chance, much higher status chance, more damage, and just by looking at the stats, also here we would conclude that the Nikana Prime is the better weapon. Finally, a lot of players also like the Zep fan saw that you can build in Cetas, and here a comparison is a little bit difficult because, you can build a Zaw type weapon out of multiple components with varying stats, but this right here would be a Zaw that I combined that has somewhat similar stats, in which case I would say it is on par. It should be mentioned though that Zaws, in comparison to other melee weapons, have access to not only a melee arcane slot, but in addition a second arcane slot for specific Zaw arcanes. So this one gives the Zep Fansaw some unique capabilities that the Dex Nikana cannot have. So yeah, overall, it doesn't look all too great. However, that is just by looking at the stats. I personally think building the Dex Nikana is still very much worth it, and you're gonna see why when we take a look at the builds now. Alright though, let's now finally talk builds, which is probably what you're all here for. In this video, I have a lot of different builds prepared for different scenarios and different playstyles, but first of all I want to start out with a beginner-friendly build, because the Dex Nikana is an anniversary weapon, it's super easy to get, and probably a lot of new players will ask themselves how to make the best out of it. This right here would be it. It's just an example. If you have other mods, then you're more than welcome to exchange them. This right here though is basically just an example build against Grineer. That's why I go for corrosive, flat damage and a Grineer faction mod. If you wanted to go up against someone else like Corpus or whatever, you would of course switch out these 3 mods for something that fits the faction you're up against. Up next though, let's talk about the most boring but the best crowd clearing build in the game, and that would be of course Melee Influence. In the Arcane, of course, Melee Influence for the AoE. This means we have to mod electricity, but if you have Shocking Touch as a subsume on your Warframe or any external source of electricity, you don't need this and can replace it with anything else. Because you're gonna spread a lot of electricity, and that's a damage over time effect, we go for a faction damage as well as Galvanized Elementalist. The crit comes from Blood Rush as well as Galvanized Steel. These two go very well together, giving you a lot of crit chance. And Galvanized Steel is also a crit damage mod at the same time. To be more precise, this one gives you even more crit damage than even crit damage mods, so we don't even use those. Whipping Wounds for even more status chance, and then our base damage comes from Condition Overload. However, if you don't have any priming or whatever going on, you can go for Pressure Point as well. Overall, I gotta say, sure, Melee Influence builds don't need any further introduction, but given the fact that the Dex Nikana doesn't have the craziest status chance in the game, I think it's not the optimal weapon to play Melee Influence with. However, before we go on, I also have a sub-variant of this Melee Influence build, where we're actually not going for Melee Influence, but still a status-heavy setup. This one is focused on dealing a lot of slash and bleed damage. What we do here is, in the Arcane slot, I go for Melee Animosity because it allows me to deal more damage with my Tennokai attacks that I weave in here and there. However, if that's not your playstyle, you can go with whatever you like instead. The focus here is also to have a lot of status chance with like Weeping Wounds for example, but we focus on purely the slash damage portion of our weapon to inflict a lot of bleeds. In addition to the status chance based bleeds, we're also going to get some force procs from our stance, so overall it is a nice slasher. Now, up next, I want to talk about a build on the Dex Nikana that makes it one of the best melee weapons in the game, and this build doesn't even use the melee weapon at all. Let me explain what I mean. Remember how earlier in the video we explained the special quirk of the Dex Nikana, the fact that it only has a maximum of 11x combo multiplier, but reaches that much faster because it only needs increments of 11 hits to increase its multiplier? Well, we can actually use that to our advantage. See, when it comes to combo multiplier, then we have a couple of options to increase that. The most prominent one would be Galvanized Reflex, that gives you more initial combo, but in addition to that, we also have Corrupt Charge, which does the same thing, and even an aura mod for our Warframe called Ready Steel, which also gives you plus 24 initial combo. Now, on most melee weapons, using Galvanized Reflex at its maximum amount of stacks will lead to a minimum combo multiplier of 5x. However, if we put Galvanized Reflex on the Dex Nikana, then all of a sudden, we have an 8x combo multiplier. How can that be? Well, the reason is that Galvanized Reflex doesn't say you get an initial 5x combo multiplier. It says you get initial 80 combo hit. It's just that for all the other melees, 80 combo hits equate to a 5x multiplier. But given the fact that the Dex Nikana increases combos in increments of not 20, but only 11, 80 initial combo equates to an 8x combo multiplier. And then if we add Corrupt Charge as well as Ready Steel on top, then we already max out the Dex Nikana at its peak of 11x. This is a super special mechanic that only the Dex Nikana can do and no other weapon at all. You would have to go for melee crescendo and stack that up forever, and it's much simpler with the Dex Nikana is what I'm trying to say. Now, why is this feature so important now? Because with this high initial combo multiplier, we can use the Dex Nikana as a stat stick to empower secondary weapons. To be more precise, we have a secondary weapon arcane, which is called a Secondary Outburst, and that gives you more critical chance and critical damage at the same time, increased by 20% per combo multiplier that you currently have. So yeah, you can see where that goes, right? With the Dex Nikana, you're gonna get 220% crit chance basically forever because the Dex Nikana is stuck at 11x. It doesn't consume that when you use the arcane. I also have a specific build for this stat stick, but you don't need to carbon copy all of this here. I mainly focused on, Corrupt Charge, Galvanized Reflex for the initial combo, and the rest, is just mainly focused on a heavy attack playstyle, also with melee afflictions, to allow us to kill enough enemies to stack Galvanized Reflex up to get the initial combo to begin with. Okay, all of these were definitely viable builds. However, now we come to the true strength of the Dex Nikana, and that would be a heavy attack playstyle. The reason why heavy attacks are so good here is pretty simple. Whenever you do a heavy attack, the damage gets multiplied by your current combo multiplier. And as we just explained, on the Dex Nikana, it's really easy to keep your maximum combo multiplier basically all the time, making heavy attacks much stronger than on many other weapons, which are all stuck at the 5x combo multiplier that they get from Galvanized Reflex. But this feature is not the only pro point. In addition to that, all Nikana type weapons have this feature that when you heavy attack an enemy, they always force proc slashes and they will always knock down the enemy. This is very important for the heavy attack build because it means we can perfectly use melee afflictions, which makes it that whenever you knock down an enemy, then the status effects on the enemy will get 6 additional stacks. In other words, the big force proc slash that we inflict with our heavy attack will be multiplied so that you have 7 instances of this big slash, and that is what gives us the millions and millions of bleed damage that you deal with the Dex Nikana. Now, this right here would be the heavy attack build, as I just said, melee afflictions, to gain 6 additional stacks of the bleed that we inflict, and the rest is, your standard heavy attack build. Prime Pressure Point for more melee damage, Killing Blow for more damage on heavy attacks and wind-up speed, But given the fact that we're going to have such a high combo multiplier with the Dex Nikana compared to other heavy attack melees, it's actually worth it to go for Blood Rush for the crit chance, which then allows us to combine that with Galvanized Steel, giving us even more crit chance and much more critical damage. This combo is ridiculously strong. As you can see, this build is ridiculously strong. However, before we end the video, I have one more extra for you. A very fresh 2026 build using the newest melee mod in the game, Truth's Flame. In case you haven't heard about it yet, the thing with Truth's Flame is that it is capable of making every single one of your hits a Tennokai hit, and that means you will never lose combo whatsoever and just deal devastating amounts of damage. Problem though is that in order to keep up this chain of Tennokai attacks, the enemy needs to die to the initial heavy attack hit, not to any subsequent damage over time. And this at first was a bit of a problem for the Dex Nikana, because as we just said, its strength lies in the bleed damage over time, not the upfront damage that usually doesn't take out the enemy. But then I remembered the following. If we choose Lavos as a Warframe of choice, then we have the possibility to mod him with the mod Valence Formation. This one will imbue damage on all your weapons, including the melee weapon, and that means, with Lavos using his third ability, we can put electricity damage onto the Dex Nikana. Now, why would we want that? Because electricity is the only damage over time effect in Warframe where the first damage over time tick already hits the enemy the moment you inflict the status effect. This then means, with melee afflictions, we're not only going to transform our 1 slash into 7 slashes, but also 1 electricity proc into 7. And because those procs hit right away as you touch the enemy with the blade, that will deal incredible upfront damage, allowing the Dex Nikana to instantly kill the enemy, and that then satisfies the requirement of Truth's Flame to kill an enemy with each hit. This right here would be the corresponding build for this playstyle. Of course, we use Truth's Flame as our Tennokai mod, melee afflictions to turn 1 electricity into 7, and the rest here looks a little bit different than our standard heavy attack build. Because with Truth's Flame, every heavy attack is a Tennokai attack, that means it has the maximum heavy attack speed possible. So instead of Amalgam Organ Shatter, we use the normal one, and instead of Melee Elementalist, we can use Galvanized Elementalist. Then, because the electricity damage comes from Lavos, we don't really need an element or anything, so I focused on just as much damage as possible with Prime Pressure Point, with Killing Blow, with Condition Overload, with double crit, just like on the other heavy attack build. This way, we're gonna deal millions of upfront electricity damage, and overall I think that is very strong. And now, check out this video here from my top 10 melee weapons in Warframe overall. Another massive shoutout to Niels V, Demon Lord Cell, Demon Emperor, Emperor Prime, Nostalgic Gaming, Turtlebeer, Underkaneo 2, Skylar Bowser, Mihawki, Socrates the Almighty Rat, Leo Morizaki, Shadow Lockhart, Han Tagas, Patrasator, Boomio1, Mr. Games Plays, Zave, Awindai, Azengen, Quax, Henrik5984, Blue Eagle 98, Hearthwield, Everin 8802, Gabriel Tevez, Yaku Ivan Gonzalez, and all other generous channel members for your continuous support. We see each other hopefully in the next one, and until then, have a nice weekend.